Civilized nations.
Then, in a few months, Utopia may hope to be completely Anglicized.
Absolutely, and without a doubt.
We are very well as we are. Everyone supplied by a kind and fatherly monarch. What have we to gain by this great change that is in store for us?
What have we to gain? English institutions, English fashions, and English celebrities.
England has made herself what she is because in that sacred land each man must think for himself. Here we have no need to think, for our monarch anticipates all our wants, and our political opinions are formed for us by the journals to which we subscribe. Oh, think how much more brilliant this dialogue would have been had we been accustomed to exercise our reflective powers. They say that in England, the conversation of the very meanest is a coruscation of impromptu epigram. Stop, I beg! My lord! I am surprised at you. Are you not aware that His Majesty, in his despotic acquiescence with the emphatic wish of his people, has ordered that the Utopian language shall be banished from his court, and henceforward all communication shall be made in the English tongue?
Yes, I'm perfectly aware of it. Although, stop, allow me.
Now, what's that for?
I have recently been appointed public exploder, and as I'm constitutionally nervous, I must accustom myself, by degrees, startling nature of my duties. Thank you. As I was about to say, as public exploder, I do my best to fall in with the royal decree, but when I'm overmastered by an indignant sense of overwhelming wrong, like I am now, I let slip into my native tongue without knowing it. I am told that in the language of that great and pure nation, slow expressions do not exist. Consequently, I want to let us think. I have no alternative to say no, but
But what is your grievance?
this. By our constitution, we are governed by a despot, who, although in theory absolute, is in practice nothing of the kind, being watched night and day by two wise men whose duty it is, on his very first lapse in social and political propriety, to denounce him to make a public explosion. Stop, allow me. And it becomes my duty to blow up His Majesty with dynamite, and as some compensation for my wounded feelings, I know that he's dead.
Yes. After many unhappy experiments in the direction of an ideal republic, it was found that what may best be described as a despotism, tempered by dynamite, provides on the whole the most satisfactory description of a ruler, an autocrat who dares not abuse his autocratic powers.
That's the theory, but in practice, how's it act? Have you ever happened to see the Paris Peeper?
Why, I've never even heard of the journal.
I'm not surprised, because His Majesty's agents always buy the whole edition. But I have an aunt in the publishing department, and she has supplied me with a copy. Well, it actually teaches the most circumstantial and convincing details of the king's abominable immoralities. If this high-class Jew is to be elect, His Majesty's will most Helio-Gabalion profligates his disgrace to the autocratic throne. And do these wise men denounce him to me? Not to me to it. They break his immoralities. On the whole, I think I'm perfectly justified in slaying elephant name. Ooh! I don't care! I don't care! The occasion demands it. Elephant name!
My anxiety has nothing to do with unacknowledged business ventures. Scaffio, I think you once told me that you have never loved.
Never, but I have an ideal, a semi-transparent being filled with an inorganic pink Jelly. And I have never yet met the woman who approached within measurable distance of it. All are opaque. Opaque!
Keep that idea firmly before you, and love not until you find her, believe me. It is to be best as you are, heart-free and happy, than as I am, eternally racked with doubting agonies. Oh, Scapio, the Princess Zara returns from England today.
My poor boy, I see it all.
Oh, Scapio, she is so beautiful. I laugh, but you have never seen her. She sailed to England 3 months before you took.
Now tell me, is your love requited?
I do not know. I'm not sure. Sometimes I think it is. And then come these torturing doubts. I feel sure she does not regard me with complete indifference, for she could never not look at me without having to go to bed with a sick headache.
That is surely something. Come, take heart, boy. You are young and beautiful. And what more could maiden wish for?
Now, Scapio, remember, she returns from that land where every youth is a young Greek god, and such poor beauty as I can show is seen at every turn.
Ah, be of good cheer. Marry her if so your fancy wills, and be sure that love will come.
Then you'll assist me in this?
Why, surely, silly one, what have you to fear? We have but to say the word, and her father must consent. Is he not our very slave? Come, take heart. I cannot bear to see you sad.
Now I may hope indeed. Oh, Scapio, you have placed me on the very pinnacle of human joy.
Let all your doubts take wing, and influence is great. If paramount the king presumes to hesitate, Patroclus will caution him that he will rule his last and grip, that must ensue from life and limb, till he will rule his harmless whip, his harmless whip, his harmless whip, his harmless whip, his harmless whip. It is as you say, a harmless whip, a harmless whip.
Service done, I employ, I have done, I enjoy, sense led, was this express, sense led was this express. Your friendly aid preferred, he no longer pine, but to speak the word alone on lady's mind. To be denied the wish to lose a lovely wife who refused the king decides the loyal truth. Then woe betide,
And woe betide,
woe betide,
and woe betide,
woe betide.
it is as you say, that woe betide, and woe betide. Step to I condescend when I am about to serve a friend. It implies now try to guess. It implies now try to guess.
That all Utopia shall henceforth be modelled upon that glorious country called Great Britain. For which the land, but others do not hold that. It is! That being so, as you insist upon it, we have arranged that our two younger daughters have been finished by an English lady, a grave and good and gracious English lady, shall daily be exhibited in public. The toil and what from the English standpoint is looked upon as matronly perfection.
Majesty wish to speak with us, I believe. You needn't keep your crown on our account.
Oh, I am sorry, I always forget that. The notion of a king not being able to wear one of his own crowns in the presence of two of his own subjects.
Yes, besides it's not.
Most quaint, but then it's a quaint world.
Teams with quiet fun. I often think what a lucky thing it is you're blessed with such a keen sense of humour.
Do you know, I find it invaluable. But try as I might, I cannot help but look upon the humorous side of things. For properly considered, everything has its humorous side. Even the palace people. See here. Another royal scandal by Junius Junior. This is a good one. Rapid royalty by Mephistopheles Minor. Fantastic. Where is the public exploder by Mercury Major? When I reflect that all these outrageous attacks on my morality were written by none other than me at your command, why, it's one of the funniest things that has come within the scope of my experience.
Besides, they have a quiet humour of their own, which is simply irresistible.
Of course, the essence of the joke lies in the fact that instead of being the abominable profligate they suggest, I am in fact one of the most fastidiously respectable persons in the whole Dominion.
But the crowning joke is the comic opera you've written us. King Tuppence, or a good deal less than half a sovereign, in which the celebrated English tenor, Russell Watson, burlesques your personal appearance and gifts. Grotesque imitations of your royal peculiarities. It's immense.
Yes, that's what I wanted to speak to you about. I've not the least doubt that even that has its humorous side. But try as I might, I cannot see where it comes in this particular instance. It's so horribly personal.
Personal? Well, of course it's personal. But consider the antithetical humour in the situation.
Yes, I don't think I've quite grasped that.
No? Oh, you do surprise me. Why consider? By day, thousands tremble at your frown. By night, from 8 to 11, thousands roar at it. By night, by day, your most arbitrary decrees and pronouncements are received by your subjects with abject deference. By night, they shout with joy at your most terrible decrees. It is if not every monarch who enjoys the privilege of undoing by night all the despotic absurdities he's committed during the day.
Of course! Now I see it. Thank you very much. I was certain it had its humorous side, and it was very dull of me not to have seen it before. Very dull indeed. But as I said just now, it's a great world.
Teams with quiet fun.
Yes, properly considered. What a farce life is, to be sure. It's all very well. I always like to look upon the humorous side of things. But I do not think I ought to be required to write libels on my own moral character. Naturally, I see the joke of it. Anybody would. Oh, but Zara's coming home today, and she's no longer a child. I confess I should not like her to see my opera, though it is uncommonly well written. I should be sorry if the palace people should get into her hands, though it's certainly smart. Very smart indeed. It's almost a pity I have to buy up the whole edition, for it's almost too good to be lost. And Lady Sophie. Oh, that perfect type of blameless womanhood. Oh, what would she say if the palace people were to meet her pure blue eyes?
My monarch is soliloquizing. I withdraw.
No, pray don't go. I'll give you 50 chances and you won't guess who I was thinking of.
Alas, sir, I know too well. Ah, King, it's an old story, and I'm well nigh weary of it. Be warned in time. From my heart, I pity you. But I'm not for you.
But hear what I have to say.
It is useless. Listen. in the course of a long and adventurous career in the principal European courts, it has occurred to me that I, unconsciously, exercise a weird and supernatural fascination over all crowned heads. So irresistible is this singular property that there is not a European monarch who has not implored me, with tears in his eyes, to quit his kingdom and take my fatal charms elsewhere. As time was getting on, it occurred to me that by descending several pegs in the scale of respectability, I might qualify Your Majesty for my hand. Actuated by this humane motive, and happening to possess respectability enough for 6, I consented to confer respectability enough for 4 upon your 2 younger daughters. But although I have, alas, only respectability enough for 2 left, there is still, as I gather from the public press of this country, a considerable balance in my favour.
Ah! May I ask how you came by this?
It was handed to me by the officer who holds the position of public exploder to Your Imperial Majesty.
And surely, Lady Sophie, surely you are not so unjust as to place any faith in the irresponsible gabble of the society press.
I read on the authority of Senate Senior that Your Majesty was seen dancing with the second housemaid on the oriental platform of the Tivoli Gardens. That is untrue?
Absolutely. Our second housemaid has only 1 leg.
How do you know that?
Common report. I give my honour.
Maybe so. I further read, and the statement is vouched for by no less than Mephistopheles Minor, that Your Majesty indulges in a bath of hot rum punch every morning. I trust I do not lay myself open to the charge of displaying an indelicate curiosity as to the mysteries of the royal dressing room when I ask if there is any foundation in its statement.
Absolutely not. When our medical advisor exhibits a rum punch, it is as a draught and not as a fermentation. As to our bath, our valet lays the garden hose upon us every morning.
Oh, pray spare me these unseemly details. Well, you are a despot. Have you taken steps to slay this scribbler?
Well, no. After all, it's the poor devil's living, don't you know?
It's the poor devil's living that surprises me. If this man lies, there is no recognized punishment sufficiently terrible for him.
That is precisely it! I am waiting for such a punishment to be discovered that exactly meets the enormity of the case. I am in constant communication with the Mikado of Japan, who is a leading authority on such points. And moreover, I have the ground plans and sectional elevations of several capital punishments in my drawer at this very moment. Oh, Lady Sophie, as you are powerful, be merciful. Subjected to your heavenly gaze, let your praise. My praise is turned to meet me, observe me now, no monarch my vow was ever so perfect.
We are the escort first lifeguards. When the tempest rose and ship went so, you suppose a real no-no. Look while it's locked in the tunic tight and the helmet knots and the breastplate might do well. We'll do and then discuss. We stood as the escort first lifeguards. First lifeguards, first lifeguards. We stood as the escort first lifeguards. Life which does make sorry, there is none of rebel ways. That's the duties on me, only your National Corps, the Ultra Guards, we are the escort first lifeguards. First lifeguards, first lifeguards, we are the escort first lifeguards. First lifeguards, first lifeguards, first lifeguards.
Zara, my daughter, why, how well you look and how lovely you've grown.
My dear father, and my two beautiful younger sisters. Not beautiful, nice looking. But first let me present you the warrior who commands my escort, and who has taken such care of me during the voyage. Captain Fizz Battleaxe.
When the tempest rose and the ship went so, you suppose we real no-no.
Son, you come from a country where every virtue flourishes. We trust that you will not criticize too severely such shortcomings as you detect in our semi-barbarous society.
Sir! I have eyes for nothing but the blameless and beautiful.
We thank you.
He is really very polite.
Lady Sophie, do not leave us.
Sir, your children are young and so far innocent. If they are to remain so, it is necessary that they are at once removed from the contamination of these disgraceful surroundings. Oh!
Dear me, it really shouldn't. Captain Fitzpatrick. Sir! Your troopers appear to be receiving a troublesome amount of attention from those young ladies. I know how strict English soldiers are, and I should be extremely distressed if anything should occur to trouble their puritanical British sensitivities.
I don't think there's any chance of that.
You think not? They won't be offended?
No, they're quite hardened to it. They get plenty of that sort of thing standing sentry at horse guards.
It's English, isn't it?
It's particularly English.
Then of course it's all right to precede young ladies. It's particularly English, don't you know? Oh, my daughter, we have much to say to each other.
Farewell, Captain Fizz Battleaxe. I cannot thank you too emphatically for the devoted care with which you have watched over me during our long and eventful voyage. A gallant soldier, brave and true, in tempted field and tourney, I grieve to have occasion to so very long journey. A British soldier gives up all his home and island beauty, when summoned by the trumpet full of regiment and duty.
A British soldier. National Corps, the Ultra Guards, we are the escort first lifeguards. First lifeguards, first lifeguards.
Tell me, Scapio, is she not beautiful? Do you not wonder that I love her so passionately?
No, she is extraordinarily, miraculously lovely. Good heavens, what a singularly beautiful girl.
I knew I'd say so.
What exquisite charm of manner, what surprising delicacy of gesture. Why, she's a goddess, a very goddess.
Yes, she's an attractive girl.
Attractive? Why, you must be blind! She's entrancing, enthralling. Her walk, her smile, her play of feature. What eyes, what lips. Why, it's bewildering, dazzling, intoxicating. God bless my heart. What's the matter with me?
Yes, you promised to help me get her father's consent, you know.
Promised, yes, but the convulsion has come, my good boy. Why, what's this? Can this stop me? I'm going mad. Mad with the love of her. What an eye. What an ear. What shoulders.
Scapio! Compose yourself, I beg! The girl is perfectly opaque. Besides, remember, each of us is helpless without the other. You can't succeed without my consent, you know.
And you dare to threaten. Oh, ungrateful. When you came to me, palsied with love for the girl and implored my assistance, did I not unhesitatingly promise it? And this is the return you make. Out of my sight, ingrate!
Dear me, I'm afraid we're interrupting a tete-a-tete.
No, you come very appropriately. To be brief, we love you, this man and I, madly, passionately.
Sir!
And we don't know how we are to decide which of us is to marry.
Zara, this is very awkward.
I am paralyzed by the singular radiance of your extraordinary loveliness. I was never like this before. I know I am incoherent. It shall not occur again. I shall be fluent, present.
Dear Captain Fitzpatrick, what is to be done?
Leave it to me. I'll handle it. It's a common enough problem. Why not settle it in the English fashion?
The English fashion? What's that?
It's very simple. In England, when two gentlemen are in love with the same lady, and until it's determined which gentleman is to blow out the brains of the other, it is provided by the Rival Admirers Consolidation Clauses Act that the lady shall be entrusted to an officer of household cavalry as stakeholder, who is bound to hand her over to the survivor on the tontine principle, in good condition, of substantial and decorative repair.
Reasonable wear and tear accepted.
Exactly.
Well, that seems very reasonable. What you say? Shall we entrust her to this officer of the household cavalry? It will give us time.
I am not at present in a position to think it out coolly. But if he is an officer of the household cavalry, and if the princess consents.
Alas, it says I have no alternative. Under the Rival Admirers Clauses Consolidation Act.
Good. Then it's settled. It's understood, I think, around that by the English custom round I'll hold the lady safe and sound in trust. Around the rival, until you clearly testify by sword or pistol, by and by, which gentleman prefers to die, and which prefers survival.
It's really understood around that by the English custom that
he was a gentleman and sound prepared to meet his rival. The mathematicians testify by sword or pistol, by and by, which gentleman would rather shine than which prefers survival.
if I should die and lose, live to live out of this world, not so young and sensitive and
Poor, trusting, simple-minded and affectionate old gentlemen. I'm really sorry for them. How strange it is that when the flower of a man's youth has faded, he seems to lose all charm in a woman's eyes.
My daughter, at last we are alone together.
Yes, and I'm glad we are, for I want to talk to you very seriously. Do you know this paper?
Oh, damn! Oh, yes, I've seen it. Where in the world did you get it from?
It was given to me by my sister's governess, Lady Sophie.
Lady Sophie's an angel, but I do sometimes wish she'd mind her own business.
It's,
It's rather humorous, don't you think?
I see nothing humorous in it. I only see that you, the despotic king of this country, are made the subject of the most scandalous insinuations. Why do you permit these things?
Well, they appeal to my sense of humour. It's the only truly comic paper in Utopia, and I wouldn't be without it for the world.
If it had any literary merit, I could understand.
It has literary merit, distinctly it has
My
literary
dear
merit.
father, it's mere ungrammatical twaddle.
It is not ungrammatical, I cannot allow that. Unpleasantly personal, perhaps, but written with an epigrammatical point which is very rare nowadays, very rare indeed.
I see notice of a new piece called King Tuppence, in which an English tenor has the audacity to personate you on a public stage. And you let this buffoon caricature you in a pointless burlesque? My dear father, there's something very wrong here. If you were a free agent, you would never permit these outrages.
Sarah, I admit that I am not altogether a free agent. I am controlled. I try to make the best of it, but sometimes I find it very difficult. Very difficult indeed. Nominally, a despot. I am, between ourselves, the hapless tool of two unscrupulous wise men who insist on me falling in with their every whim. And you threaten to denounce me for immediate explosion if I remonstrate.
Oh, my poor father. Now listen to me. With a view to remodeling the political and social institutions of Utopia, I've brought with me 7 representatives of the principal causes that have tended to make England the powerful, happy and blameless country which the consensus of European civilization has declared it to be. Place yourself unreservedly in the hands of these ladies and gentlemen, and they will reorganize your country on a footing that will enable you to defy your persecutors. They are all now washing their hands after their journey. Shall I introduce them?
My dear Zara, how can I thank you? I will consent to anything that will release me from the abominable tyranny of these 2 men. What ho without there! Summon my court without an instant's delay! Great and glorious country, what it is. What does this mean?
Attend to me, Utopian populace, ye South Pacific Island viviparians. All in the abstract types of courtly grace, yet when compared with Britain's glorious race, but little better than half-clothed barbarians. Britain's
I want you for the Jubilee. I show you how to sing like me, and when it can go, and how the critics and audience shall cast their vote for 50 pence with telephone and internet. When the occasion calls, just sing a song and do the plot from the pirates of Penzance, or from the brilliant pen of Poe, singing Captain Cook and KCB. I'll win your talent show with glee, and then I'll claim a big country, 'cause no one's half as good as me.
Was never,
No, never,
was never,
hardly ever.
was no one's half as good as he then. He preaches and preaches for the body of the people. He preaches and preaches for God. Yes, I saw him as that. He heard the voice of man. He blessed the day and blessed the hour. Brought you
He wanders from a mighty state, to teach us how to legislate.
Your lightest word will carry weight in our attentive ears.
teach the natives of this land,
To teach the natives of this land,
who are not quick to understand.
who are not quick to understand.
He wanders from a mighty state, will teach us how to legislate.
Your
Light is carry weight in
Give me 10 push-ups, serve fruits in your schools.
We'll sing your song, and we will take
Reading vibrations of your steady tones. Hope you could nice things.
You talk as much to me for one small head. I'll launch it as a new TV show instead.
A new TV show instead, what may that be? A term I rather think is new to me.
a new TV show instead. What may that mean? What does he mean? What does he mean? Give us some kind of clue. What does he mean? What does he mean? What's he going to do?
In every single place throughout this nation, from home to hospital and public square, we'll announce the launch of our new TV station and ask for people to be on the air. They will be TV stars if they are willing to take the risk of television fame. Their talent immaterial, they may have none, it only matters that they have no shame. We'll have everyone we know, the good sense of doing so will be evident amongst many viewer, and we'll make celebrities out of anyone we please, and when we're bored we'll just find someone newer.
When we make celebrities out of anyone we please, and when we're bored, we'll just find someone new.
When throughout this land the people are addicted to watching every brilliant TV show, it will be as in England I predicted. The health and wealth of everyone will grow. The ratings for our shows will be tremendous, entirely due to our combined good sense. The quality of show will be stupendous, and will be held to the eminence. television channels. And soon they'll be just to advise the sense by us. On 100 million television channels.
Well, at first sight, it strikes us as dishonest. But it is good enough for virtuous England, the first televised country in the world. It's good enough for us.
You best be there. Please recollect, we have not been consulted.
And do I understand you that Great Britain, upon this TV principle, is governed?
We haven't come to that exactly, but we're moving rapidly in that direction. The date's not distant.
We will be before you. Will go down to posterity, renowned as the first sovereign imprisonment. Would televised his crown and country in the broadcast medium and beauty show. Henceforward on the bed, thanks to the builder, posterity will summon to the page. If you give it back away, such a big gold buyer, tax you to anything.
Pick 'em up!
Give me off.
Bad, we've done it twice.
Give me up. Of course, he very all right, all right. Ow, 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 ow.
attempted sin. Repent not, mocking maid, thy girlhood choice. The fervor of my love affects my voice. On tenor singers above, this doesn't admit of a question. Must keep himself quiet, attend to his diet, and carefully nurse his digestion. For in his rambling love, it's certain to tell myself justice. I could sing if my fervor were more. It's easy enough if you're acting. But when one's emotions are born of devotion, it's hard to be over-exacting. Hard to be proud as a rogue, to venture a shaken vibrato. When fervor's expected, be cool and collected, or never attempt agitato. But of course, when his tongue is a leper, and his lips have been raised into leather, and no sensitive ballad as dry as a crust as a tenor can do himself justice. Now observe. It's no use. I can't do myself justice.
When the higher qualities of the heart or can be desired, the higher notes of the voice are matters of comparative insignificance. Who thinks slightingly of the coconut because it is husky? Besides, you are not singing for an engagement. You have that already.
How good and wise you are. How alluringly your practiced brain winnows the wheat from the chaff, the material from the merely incidental.
My Girton training, Arthur. At Girton, all is wheat. Idle chaff is never heard within its walls. But tell me, is not all working marvellously well? Have not our flowers of progress more than justified their names?
We have indeed done our best. Super Nanny and I have, in concert, thoroughly remodeled the nursery services, and upon so sound a basis that the whole of the South Pacific sends its children to be educated. Utopia!
Oh, how clever of you.
Clever? Not a bit. It's as easy as possible when Ofsted and the Department of Education are looking over its shoulder.
But perhaps the most beneficent change of all has been effected by our TV producer, who has introduced the concept of reality TV to the populace. And now every man, woman, and child is a contestant on X Factor Utopia. There's not a christened baby in the whole of Utopia who is not already in rehearsal for his audition.
Marvelous is the power of a civilization which can transform by a dull word, dull reality into reality TV.
Reform has not stopped here. It's been applied even to the costume of our people. Scaffia and Fantas have undertaken a contract to supply the whole of Utopia with clothing designed upon the most approved English models. And the first live broadcast under the new state of things is to be held here this evening. In fact, I have a production meeting in just a few minutes.
Then we must part?
Necessarily for a time.
Just as I wanted to tell you, with all the passionate enthusiasm of my nature, how deeply, how devotedly, I love you.
How should these be the accents of a heart that really feels? Triops not indulge in declamation. Its voice is sweet, soft and low. West wind whispers when he was the words of love to love is moving in their own time and now. Noisy vows are rudely broken, softness so will feel alone. Whisper sweet, you whisper slow.
monarch who has been accustomed to the uncontrolled use of his limbs, the costume of a British TV presenter is perhaps at first a little cramping. Are you sure this is all right? It's not a practical joke, is it? No one has a keener sense of humour than I, but the first production meeting of Utopia TV must be carried out with dignity and impressiveness. And now then, where are the other 6 celebrities?
Sir! They're behind you.
Ah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our daughter holds her first live broadcast in half an hour, and we shall have to give our half-yearly ratings report in the interval. I'm necessarily unfamiliar with the form of an English production meeting. Perhaps our producer will put us in the way of doing things, with due regard to the solemnity of the occasion.
Certainly, nothing simpler. Kindly bring your chairs forward. His Majesty will, of course, preside.
Like this.
No, Your Majesty. Like this.
Oh. It seems odd, but never mind. Society has quite forsaken all her wicked forces, which empties our police courts and abolishes divorces.
Divorce is nearly obsolete in England.
No tolerance we show to undeserving rank and splendor, for the higher his position is, the greater the offender.
As a maxim that is prevalent in England.
No person in our talent showing it to the next round passes would be eliminated by the lower middle classes. The talent is whatever be their rank, how about that we plead?
Sure, this happy country has been anglicized completely. It's really surprising what a thorough anglicizing we have brought a bunch of children's friends from other land. In her enterprising woman, she is given with influence to keep the felly efforts from other land.
We have beautified, we've done it willy-nilly, and all that isn't Belgrave Square is Strand or Piccadilly.
We haven't any slumberies in England.
We've solved the labour question with discrimination abolished, so poverty is obsolete and hunger is abolished.
We're going to abolish it in England.
The producer, our native stage, has put beyond a question of the resource situation and indelicacy. No peace is tolerated if it's costumed indiscreetly.
In short, this happy country has been anglicized completely. It really is surprising what the thorough anglicizing here brought about to us from another land. In her enterprising woman, she is thinking with the moment to keep the belly up to our motherland.
Modelled on an intellectual basis, which certainly is a rap on our hereditary races.
We're going to remodel it in England.
The donors and the businessmen no longer seek admission, and true dramatic merit meets with proper recognition.
As true dramatic merit does in England.
Honours we may come to amongst our intellectual champions, like you and
this happy country has been anglicized completely. It really is surprising what the thorough anglicizing we have brought about to us from another land. In her enterprising woman, she is given with influence to keep the felly out to our motherland. It really is surprising what the thorough anglicizing we have brought about to us from another land. In her enterprising woman, she is given with influence to keep the felly out to our motherland.
Broadcast. Where are the royal princesses? But the strange thing is that since E4 has been provided to the royal bedrooms, my daughters are invariably late.
Sir, their royal highnesses await your pleasure in the green room.
Then we are all assembled. Now, Mr. Producer, we are ready.
We fume and smother rage. Those Englishmen who in their undertaking they ready. By stifling every harmless scheme in which we both engage. In which we both engage.
We think it is our turn.
We think our turn has come. We know
These Englishmen, they must prepare to seek towards their native land. The king is here to all this nation.
This will be, now this will do. If you're my queen and I'll back you, this will do.
This won't do. Gentlemen, really, this unseemly display of energy within our royal precincts is altogether unpardonable. Pray, what do you complain of?
What do we complain of? Why, through the innovations introduced by the flowers of progress, all our harmless schemes making provision for our old age are ruined. Our matrimonial agency is at a standstill. Our cheap sherry business is in bankruptcy. Our army clothing contracts are paralyzed. Even our society paper, the Palace Peeper, is practically defunct.
Defunct, dear me, I am truly sorry.
Are you aware that your television producer has introduced a satirical news quiz on which all the editors of scurrilous newspapers are publicly flogged, as in England? And 6 of our editors have resigned in succession. Now, the editor of a scurrilous paper can stand a great deal. He takes a private thrashing as a matter of course. It's considered in his salary. But no gentleman likes to be publicly flogged.
Naturally, I shouldn't like it myself.
The burlesque theatre is absolutely alive.
Dear me, well, theatrical property isn't what it was.
Are you aware that the people of Utopia are so mesmerized by the programs on Utopia TV? They just sit around all day in their homes, as in England. They never set foot inside a theatre.
Gentlemen, really, this is very irregular. If you will be so good as to formulate a detailed list of your grievances in writing, addressed to the governors of Utopia TV, they will be brought before the board in due course at their next monthly meeting.
Are we to understand that we are defied?
That is the idea I intended to convey.
Defied! We're defied! Take great care. You know our powers. Trifle with us, and you die! If we don't have immunity, we may put in a fight in impunity. You are sadly misled of vanity.
Fighting with personal tranquility, revert to a state of docility, or perpetuate get to temerity. If my speech is unduly refractory, you may find it a course satisfactory. At an early board meeting to show it up, though my ratings are high and awards many. Whilst I am a TV celebrity, you cannot conveniently blow me up. With every chance, I also dance a step bottle of Mr. Hess, the hidden sex of Mr. Hess, the hidden sex.
to bring the people down about its ears.
A plot?
Yes, a plot of superhuman subtlety. Have you such a thing about you?
I think not. This one on my dressing room table.
There's no time. We must devise one at once and put it into execution without delay. There's not a moment to lose. With wily brain upon the spot of private plot, we'll plan the most ingenious private plots began. That's understood, so far we've got, and striking while the iron's hot. We'll now determine like a shot the details of this private plot. I think we ought. Such much I never heard. What? How that's absurd. Oh, tell me how. Why, what put that in your head? I've got it now. I'll push it away to bed. I'll push it to bed. But bless me, don't you see? Listen to me, I pray. God, this is the only way. Such no, you're totally ridiculous. You have a criminal bundle. You have a criminal bundle. You have a criminal bundle. We haven't quite solved the plot, they're not a very ingenious lot. Don't be unhappy, it's still on the town, you will presently hit on a capital plot. I think we ought. Now there, I think you're right, then we might ought.
That's true, we certainly might. I'll tell you what.
Well, if we possibly can, then on the spot. For a capital plan, that's exceedingly neat and new. Exceedingly new indeed.
I fancy that would do.
It's certainly very complete. A voice, style, sound, you carry your power. You're very ingenious, chap. You're intellectual, chap. You're very ingenious, chap. You're very intellectual, chap. At last, the capital plan we want, say how we want, say what, say that my love from the offering was up and trying to develop this capital plan. And again, the capital plan we want, say how we want, say what, say that my love from the offering was up and trying to develop this capital plan.
South Pacific talent show, allowing for a slight difficulty with the band and a little want of familiarity with the roof plot. It was on the whole a meritorious affair.
My dear Mr. Producer, it redounds infinitely to your credit.
One or two judicious innovations, I think.
Admirable with showgirls' costumes for a cheap and effective inspiration.
Yes, my idea entirely. Never been done before.
Never have been spoken.
book they publish me. These pallid maps were written and completed by me.
By you? No, no.
Yes, yes, I swear, by me. I, fortune's hackers ruthless toil, contributed the loss.
And that is why you did not boil the author on the spot.
And that is why I did not boil the author on the spot.
I couldn't think why you did not boil the author on the spot.
I knew very well why I didn't. Boil him on the spot.
Your rapture unrestrained of a candid retractation, my sovereign has stayed a convincing explanation. For the clouds have gathered all, they have vanished in the distance, and the kings of buried all, one at least is in existence. All kings of buried all, one at least is in existence.
Skies of love above, and we heard in a legend of Mosul, the lady of my love has accepted my proposal, that has in more and more I've crossed without resistance. Foolish paragons, one at least is in existence. Of foolish paragons, one at least is in existence. Have vanished in the distance. All have vanished, all have vanished, all have vanished, vanished in the distance.
Well, have you done our bidding? Have you explained to the happy and contented populace the nature of their wrongs and the desperate consequences that must ensue if they are not rectified?
I've explained nothing. I have done better. I have made them sign an affidavit. What they believe to be pure happiness is actually unspeakable misery. You can't help believing affidavits.
An admirable thought. Ha! They come!
this unmannerly eruption? Is this your gratitude for boons conferred?
Boons! Bah! Fickle for such boons, say we. These boons has brought Utopia to a standstill. Your celebrity chef has implemented such drastic culinary and nutritional improvements that all children, deprived of additives, get the best possible education, become quantum physicists, and there is nobody left to sweep the streets!
Your fitness instructor has improved the health of the nation, so no one has heart disease, and all the doctors dwindle, starve, and die.
Commerce is stagnant, as every man has now been on spendaholics. He has cut back his spending and carefully saves his cash.
Our children, thoroughly trained by super nanny, have quite abandoned crime and harassment. The lawyers starve, and not a single ASBO has been issued since. The police and magistrates have to catch real criminals.
In short, Utopia, swamped by dull prosperity, demands that these hated flowers of progress be sent about their business and affairs restored to their original complexion.
Is this your will? Daughter, this is very irregular. What is to be done?
I don't know. There's something wrong. I don't understand it.
Is everything at a standstill in England? Is there no litigation, no bankruptcy, no poverty, no squalor, no crime, no sickness?
Plenty. It's the most prosperous country in the world. We must have omitted something.
It's all very well, but what?
Why, of course. I remember now. I'd forgotten the most important, the most vital, the most essential element of all.
And that is?
We must sell the country to Channel 5. Introduce that great and glorious element, and all will be well. There will be repeats and adverts galore. No improvements will be possible because of the demands of advertisers. Talentless individuals will run our TV production companies, and the quality of TV will undoubtedly decline. Cheap Australian soaps will dominate the airwaves. But then, there will be sickness in plenty, endless lawsuits, overcrowded jails, interminable confusion in our schools, and, in short, general and unexampled prosperity.
Yay! Baffled, but an hour will come!
Your hour has already come. Away with them and let them wait my will. You deserve some compensation in return for the privilege of blowing us up and succeeding to the throne. We therefore appoint you Perpetual Chief Examiner of Explosives, under 38 and 39, Vic Chapter 17, Section 6 and 7. From henceforward, we will be a subsidiary of the great and glorious Channel 5, with all its attendant blessings.